You know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I want to start with something that probably made you uncomfortable the moment you heard it: the numbers. Women who retire at 65 have roughly 20 years ahead of them. That's not me being depressing, that's just the actuarial table. But here's the thing, and this is what nobody talks about. Those 20 years, they're not all the same. The healthy years, the years where you can actually get on a plane without worrying about your knees, or stay up past 9 o'clock at night, or eat something spicy without regretting it for 3 days, those years are maybe 10 to 12. Maybe. And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I wish someone had said it to me when I was 45 years old, sitting at my desk in Columbus, maxing out my 401k, and telling myself that all of this sacrifice was going to pay off someday. Does that sound familiar? I mean, you know the story. You work, you climb, you defer. You tell yourself it's temporary, that it's all building towards something. The vacation will happen after the big project. The time with your family will be better once you make partner, or get the promotion, or hit that number in your retirement account. That number, right? That magic number that's supposed to make everything okay. I spent 30 years chasing that number, 30 years. And I'm not proud of this. I didn't want to admit it for a very long time. But when I was in my 40s, I missed my daughter Sarah's school play. Not because of a medical emergency, not because someone needed me to save their life, because I had a presentation on a Thursday evening and I didn't want to leave early. I can still see her face when I picked her up that night, asking if I was proud of her. I was proud, I told her, but I wasn't there. In my 50s, my sister invited me to come to Colorado for her 50th birthday weekend. It was February. I had the vacation days, but the market was uncertain, and I didn't want to disrupt my contributions, and I kept telling myself I'd make it up to her next year. You know what she did that weekend? She went without me. She sent pictures from Aspen, and there's this one of her and her friends laughing, and she's wearing this ridiculous feather boa, and I have never forgotten that I wasn't there. I'm telling you this not because I'm looking for sympathy. I'm telling you this because I'm a cautionary tale, and I know it. And somewhere right now, you might be doing the same thing. You might be deferring something, anything, your own life. So I want to tell you about something my grandmother kept on her kitchen counter. It was a tin recipe box, one of those old-fashioned metal boxes with a picture of a woman in an apron on the front, faded now, from maybe the 1950s. My grandmother, Helen, she kept recipes in there, sure, but there was also this index card, handwritten in her shaky cursive, that she wrote later in life. I mean, I knew that card was in there. Everyone in my family knew about that card, but I never opened it. I mean, I never actually opened it until I was 71 years old and my best friend Dorothy was dead. Let me back up. I graduated from Ohio State in 1969. I was ambitious, I was smart, and I was going to show everyone that women could do what men could do in the corporate world. I got a job at a banking firm in Columbus. I was one of 3 women in my department. The other 2 left within 5 years to raise families. I stayed. I told myself I was different. I told myself I was choosing my career. But the truth is, somewhere along the way, I stopped choosing anything. The job chose for me. My salary went up. I got a house, a nice house in the suburbs with a mortgage that made sense at the time. I maxed out my 401k every single year for 36 years. Do you understand what that means? That means I was thinking about money I might need when I was 70, when I was 34 years old. And I never stopped thinking about it, not once. I got married briefly in my 30s. Good man, wanted kids, wanted me to be home more. I chose the career. The marriage lasted 4 years. I was lonely sometimes after that, but I was never quite ready to admit it. There was always another goal, another milestone, another number to hit. Sarah, my daughter, I had her late when I was 38. I thought I could do it all. I had the maternity leave. I came back to work. I hired a very good nanny, and Sarah was fine. She was. But you know what I remember? I remember my mother calling me at the office to tell me Sarah had said her first word. Said it to the nanny, not to me. And I remember thinking, well, that's fine. I'll hear her say it again. Except that's not how children work. You don't get a do-over on the first word. Sarah is 45 now. We're close enough. We talk every other month or so. She doesn't say it, but I know she feels the absence. I feel it. We can't get that time back. I mean, you can't get time back. That's the whole thing nobody tells you when you're young and ambitious and climbing. The tin recipe box sat on the counter in my kitchen for 46 years, just sitting there. I'd see it every morning when I made my coffee. I'd see it every evening when I made dinner, or more often when I was taking out leftovers from the container my mother had dropped off. And I never opened it. I mean, why would I? I knew what was in there. Recipes. Maybe a note. Nothing I needed. I was too busy. I was always too busy. By the time I hit my early 60s, I started to feel it. Not pain exactly, but a kind of weariness that didn't go away with sleep. I was still working. They wanted to keep me. I was good at what I did. I was reliable. I never complained. I came in, I did the work, I went home. And I thought, well, this is fine. This is life. This is what I built. I built this. But then I'd have these moments. I'd be in a meeting, and someone would mention that they were planning a vacation, and I'd think, when was the last time I planned a vacation? And I couldn't remember. I mean, I took vacations. I'd go to a resort somewhere warm. I'd read a book. I'd come back. But I wasn't really vacationing. I was just stopping work in a different location. And then I'd get back and feel relieved because I could start working again. I know how that sounds. I mean, I know. My co-workers, some of them were my friends, or I thought they were. They'd go out for happy hour, and sometimes I'd go. We'd talk about our work. We'd talk about our plans for retirement in this abstract way, like we were all going to simultaneously stop our lives and suddenly become different people. And then we'd go back to work, and on Monday it was the same conversation with different particulars. Dorothy was different. I met Dorothy at a party in 1984. She was a nurse. She worked at the hospital in downtown Columbus, and she worked 3 days a week, which seemed insane to me at the time. 3 days. How do you only work 3 days? But Dorothy had 2 kids, and she took them camping. She taught them to swim. She was present. She was actually present in her own life. And yet we became friends, lifelong friends. I mean, we were friends for 40 years, and I'm not sure I ever really understood how Dorothy managed to be so happy when she was making maybe half of what I was making. She had this old car. She had a small house. She wasn't saving aggressively. And I remember asking her once, when we were in our 50s, if she ever worried about retirement. And she said, "You know, Margaret, I'm going to work until I can't work. And then I'm going to live on Social Security. And I'm going to be fine." And I remember thinking, how is she not terrified? But Dorothy wasn't terrified. Dorothy took her kids to Yellowstone. Dorothy drove down to visit me 3 times a year, even though it was a 4-hour drive. Dorothy baked things. She laughed. She laughed so easily and so loudly, and people looked at her sometimes like she was crazy, and she didn't care. I retired at 65. I had a retirement party. My boss gave a speech. My co-workers brought a cake. It was very kind. And that night I went home to my house, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I didn't know what to do with myself. The tin recipe box was there, of course, right where it had always been, and I still didn't open it. The first Monday without work, I woke up at 6 in the morning out of habit, and then I realized I didn't have anywhere to be. And I thought, well, now I'll have time to do all those things. Now I'll call Sarah more often. Now I'll read those books. Now I'll travel. Now I'll live. Except I was 65 years old, and I didn't actually know how to live without structure. The structure was gone, and I was lost. My Social Security started. I enrolled in Medicare. They sent me a card. I remember holding that card and thinking, this is official now, you're old, and I wasn't ready. I mean, I'd been preparing for retirement for 30 years, and when it actually arrived, I wasn't ready for it at all. I did some things that first year. I took a trip to Florida. I sat by a pool. I read a book. I came home. I joined the garden club at my church. We met once a month and talked about flowers. I started volunteering. I organized the library's book sale 4 times a year. I was filling the hours. I was very busy not having a job. And the money, well, the money was there. I had been good about saving. My 401k had grown substantially. I'd inherited some money from my mother when she died at 78. I had my Social Security. I didn't have to work. I was financially secure. That was the goal, right? That was supposed to be the moment when everything got better. But it didn't. It didn't get better. It just got quieter. The second year of retirement, the isolation started to show. My co-workers scattered. We said we'd stay in touch, and I sent emails to a few of them, and they were nice, but we didn't have work to talk about anymore, and it turned out we didn't have very much to talk about at all. I called Sarah a little more regularly. She was kind, but busy. She had a family of her own. I was proud of her, but I was also a ghost in her life. And you know what I did about it? I didn't do anything. I thought, well, at least I'm not going to make it worse, and I let the distance remain. Medicare is a complicated thing when you actually have to understand it. I mean, I'd heard about it my whole career. I'd paid into it. But when you actually get there, When you actually hold that card, you realize that Medicare doesn't cover everything. It covers some things. It doesn't cover vision. It doesn't cover dental. It covers some things related to hearing, but not the really good hearing aids. It covers hospitalization. It covers doctor visits, but there are gaps. So I had to buy a supplemental plan. That cost money. Every month it cost money. And I started to realize something. My retirement savings weren't going to be devoured by some big catastrophe, like a major hospitalization or a fall, though those things happen, and I was insured against them. My retirement savings were going to be quietly eaten by the small things. The dental crown that cost $3,000 because my insurer only covered half. The eye exam, the new glasses, the hearing aid eventually because the ringing in my ear got worse. And it turns out hearing loss is one of the things that happens to women your age, they said, very cheerfully, as if I should have expected it. And then there were the things that had nothing to do with medical care. Property tax on the house. Home insurance went up. I needed a new roof. That was $12,000. My car needed transmission work. Another $5,000. These weren't emergencies in the catastrophic sense, but they were real, and they came out of my retirement savings, which suddenly felt less infinite than it had when I was depositing $20,000 a year into it. And here's the thing about retirement that nobody talks about. It's boring and lonely, and both of those things are slow poisons. You wake up and you think, well, what now? And sometimes the answer is nothing. Sometimes the answer is a garden club meeting. Sometimes the answer is volunteer hours at the library. Sometimes the answer is sitting at home, watching television, and realizing that you can't remember the last time you actually laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a smile at a joke, a real laugh. Your stomach moving, your face hurting. The kind of laugh that Dorothy had. I kept telling myself I would travel more. I had the money, I had the time, I had the freedom. I would take a trip. But then the weather seemed uncertain, or I wasn't feeling quite right, or there was something that needed fixing on the house, and I put it off. I mean, I had time. There was always time. I was going to do it in the spring. I was going to do it next summer. I was going to do it when I felt a little more energetic. And I think that's the most insidious thing about the retirement trap. It feels like a trap only after you're already in it. When you're working, you tell yourself that you're sacrificing now for later. You're building something, you're making yourself secure, and then you get to later, and you realize that the sacrifice and the building consume something you can't get back. I was 71 when Dorothy died. She had a heart attack in her sleep. She was at home in her little house, the one she'd owned for 30 years. The one that wasn't fancy, but was full of plants and pictures and things that made her happy. And she died, just like that, a Wednesday night. She went to bed and she didn't wake up. I found out on Thursday morning. Dorothy's daughter called me. She was crying. I was crying. I remember thinking, no, not Dorothy, not her. She's not supposed to die. She's supposed to keep coming down every month and keep laughing at things that aren't funny and keep showing me how to live. The funeral was the following Tuesday. I spoke. I said things about her. I talked about her kindness. I talked about her generosity with her time. I didn't talk about how she showed me up. I didn't talk about how every time I was with her, I felt the weight of all the things I wasn't doing, all the ways I was spending my life. After the funeral, Dorothy's daughter asked me if I could help her go through Dorothy's things. She had to go back to Michigan, back to her own family, and there were papers and photographs and all the material evidence of a life. And I said yes. I said, of course I'll help.